Good morning YouTube, Ian here from Coolice Charge Case and Power Supplies. I hope you're all safe and well still in these up and down times. I'd like to apologise up front if you hear me sniffing and snorting and coughing in the background, because ever since the kids have been back to school for about a week and a half and brought the cold bugs back with them, and instead of keeping them to themselves, they've shared them with their mum and dad. So Dad obviously suffers because obviously he's a man, so Dad gets man flu. That's a real thing. That's why I keep telling the wife anyway. But anyway, without further ado, you can obviously see in the video frame here, I've got a slightly different case. This isn't obviously all my design or anything on this one. This is obviously a pre-cut kit that you can purchase from a US supplier, I think. It's got bump charger on the case, but I don't think it's a bump charger one, this one. But anyway, long story short, customer in the US purchased the case, which is one of the rigid cases, and obviously then the self-build charger holder to obviously go in the middle, and it works very well. It obviously works quite nicely. It's all worked out nice, bolts into the bottom of the case, into which then you fit your own choice of power supplies, and obviously then in this case then the 406 Duo on the outside, and any cooling fans as well. You obviously do the additional wiring in the assembly yourself, which he did. He then obviously realised that there could be an issue, because obviously again it's a server supply setup, so he realised there could be an issue with the 406. So he approached me for one of my IceMeters, which obviously I supplied, along with a pair of power supplies. So out that went to the US, tested and obviously working this end. When he then obviously fitted it in, which is obviously quite tight under there, it was charging, but then towards the end of the charge, for some unknown reason, it would obviously seem to shut down. So the only thing I could think of there is perhaps one of the power supplies was playing around a little bit. So the first idea was, send me the IceMeter and the power supplies back, I'll test and check, replace and return. But the customer said, no, tell you what, I'd like to obviously send you the entire case back, so you can just get it working for me and make sure it's all correct. So I said, fine, as long as you're okay with that. I said, you know, I'll look after you, kind of thing, because it's going to be an expensive exercise, and sure enough it is, to obviously get the case back to me. So while it's here, I've done a few different things. The power supplies, in fact, I did replace them. I've still got them actually on the floor. They're down there, the original ones. It appears under load, one of them does seem to shut down a little bit, but it seems funny. 1 minute it does it, 1 minute it doesn't. So by the time you mess around trying to fault find with them, it's not worth it. So I put a new set in, and it's done a few charge cycles now, and it's fine. So while it was here, I took to doing a couple of modifications for him, because I wasn't particularly happy with the cooling, I'll be honest with you on this. Obviously the power supplies are the 2400 watt HP units, well 2x1200 watts, so they do run hot, and obviously the metal casing on them is the heatsink. So the fixture idea for them was obviously double-sided tape, which allowed them to budge loose in transit, coming obviously from the US back to the UK. So in the photographs you will notice at the end of the video, I will put some on it, I created another variation of my 3D printed clamping bracket assembly, but to work within the confines of this box section in the charge case itself. So what I did then, I 3D printed 3 brackets, so there's one near the back, one as near the front, and then another one in the middle, just slightly offset in fact, to miss the bolts securing the side plates on the bottom of the case itself. So now the power supplies within it, instead of being double-sided into the bottom of the case, they're now clamped using 3D printed brackets. So should the need arise in time that again a power supply need to be changed, which unfortunately can happen whether it's a brand new power supply or a used service supply, it's going to be a lot easier to do so, because obviously combined with my quick release connector on the front of these units, negating the need to do any desoldering and resoldering again of any wires, just slide the connector off, unbolt these clamping fixtures, and then the 2 power supplies then come out, and you can replace the duff one and then slide the module back in. They also then changed the AC leads. The customer used obviously the crimp connectors originally, which I can come down here and show you that, and then obviously fixed them in place, which worked. But then as I've gone to try and pull these out now, you can't easily pull them out, so I've gone for right angled ones, IEC connectors. So again, it will just be a quick disconnect and reconnect plug on the AC side as well. So with the cooling fans, you have the option to put a couple of options here, and there was obviously one here originally as working as an inlet, and I've maintained that there. There was also possibility of fitting some more on the side, and I think there's a possibility of 2, but I've only got 1 on this side, and it's an exhaust fan. So the idea is, again, I've tried to maintain the cooling flow of air going through the power supply. So obviously the front end of the power supply is up this end, so the power supplies will ingest cool air at the front, run it through the power supply, and then throw it out the back in this area. And this is why then now you've also seen this Swiss cheese layout with all the drilled holes here as well, because I was noticing it was getting quite warm across the back of the case here, because obviously then as the fans would ramp up on the back of the power supplies, it was just throwing the hot air against a flat surface. Now I did originally think of cutting some holes and putting some grills here, but then I thought that might compromise the strength of the case. I wasn't too confident in doing that, so I went with this Swiss cheese approach. And obviously, so I've cadded up the this upper deck plate here, laid out the circles, and in the end I actually drilled these by hand, but I laid the paper template down, and obviously then obviously drilled each one by hand. So I marked them first with a smaller drill, took away my paper template, and then just went all through each one to open them out to the 10mm holes you've got here. And surprisingly, it looks quite neat, so I'm pleased with that. So that, combined with obviously the exhaust fans here, obviously helps keep it a little bit cooler. It still runs hot in there. There isn't a lot of airspace in there, unfortunately, but it's much better than what it was. Got another exhaust fan here, and obviously for the cooling fans that I've added, and I've added another one at the back here as an inlet fan on this side. You can just about see that if I zoom in. Yep. I've gone with the 6cm by 6cm by 15 PC style cooling fans. So again, they're quiet, but they shift a reasonable amount of air. So the idea is then you've got 2 inlet fans, one on the side, one here, drawing cool air in. That's then obviously taken through the power supplies themselves, and then obviously then is sucked out from this end and obviously the outside, and then of course as hot air rises, if there's any pool in here, it'll just come out the hole. So it's quite good. The only drawback to that potentially, I suppose, is if you dropped a connector down through there, but they'll be on the end of wires, so I think that's not really likely to happen. And at the end of the day, the overall thing was then to look quite neat, which brings me on to another thing, the IceMeter. Of course, the owner of this case obviously had to machine the cutouts for the IceMeter by hand, and admittedly he done a very good job of it, but it was obviously a little bit rough around the edges. And obviously I didn't want to go too much into this, because I'm doing this obviously as a favour, if you like, to obviously make it look a little bit pretty. But it gave me an option then to create just a basic 3D printed legend plate, if you want to call it that, or beauty plate I'll call it, for the IceMeter. So I've done that, and obviously secured it to the deck with obviously the 4 self-tapping screws. So it just basically just tidies it up, and obviously then still allows the IceMeter LCD to be seen. Likewise then, took the IEC connector, I changed it. Actually I put one of my version ones on it, because the other one looked like it had been ground down a little bit, and I didn't like that, so I've changed it. And then obviously again 3D printed the bezel just to match it in. And surprisingly, even though the deck material, I think it's HDPE, but it's got the mottled finish, which I've not actually tried any of this material myself yet, and I do want to, because it does look quite high tech without having to spend a lot of time sticking vinyl to it and so on and so forth. Even though that hasn't got any silver flecks or anything in it, it blends in quite well with the Prusament Galaxy Black filament, which does have the silver flecks in it. It actually looks quite nice, so it looks like it's really meant to be there, so I'm quite pleased with that. The LEDs, obviously from the IceMeter, you can obviously see them there. Beforehand, obviously they came out of the deck. I'd just cut the little knots there quick just to let the wires through. They obviously then came up, and then the LEDs were stuck on the outside of the upper plate here. I thought, well, we can make that a bit better. So again, I marked it from the back and drilled the holes in the right spacings for the LEDs. And that looks quite good. Run the wire up. So that just makes it a little bit neater. So what I'll do, if I quickly plug it in, you can see the IceMeter. It's obviously booting up as normal. Nothing different compared to that. And then you can see the LEDs. They look quite nice and neat. And then we'll just hit go. And also, actually, another thing I noticed here, because obviously now I'm containing the IceMeter control knob a little bit with the, around it quite closely, it's actually showing a little bit more of the LED colour in the knob, which is the idea behind it. So that's worked out quite good. Obviously, the cooling fans are controlled by the IceMeter, so they're obviously due to come on. Fan on. So the fan's going to come up 26 degrees. Overheat, shut down will be 38. I've got that quite high. It's going to America. Yeah, so it's currently only 20 degrees C in the case, so the fans aren't on at this point. But overall, this case is now done. Done a couple of charge cycles, a couple of discharge cycles on packs here. So we're good to go. I just wanted to take a quick photograph and some video. We're still working away. Coolice charge case and power supplies is very busy, which is quite nice. I thank you for all my customers and obviously any future customers as well. It's very humbling to be in the position I'm in, and it makes all the hard work worthwhile. As usual, thank you for watching, stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.